Well, back in the early 90s, I was going through probably the worst period in my life. I was coming out of a very emotional, hurtful divorce. And what made it worse for me was that it was my fault. So I was a broken man, and first and foremost of greatest importance was the fact that I was lost as a goose. But in spite of my lostness, I was involved in a Bible study every week. And it just so happened that that New Year's Eve fell on the regular night of our Bible study. So we decided to go ahead and have our Bible study that night, and we did. And at the conclusion of it, somebody asked what we were praying for the Lord to do in our lives during the coming year. The one that I mentioned to the group was that I was asking the Lord to bring somebody into my life who would be a special friend, a best friend. That was what I voiced that night, and of course time went by, and a few months later, showed up at work in the morning and there was a new guy there. And we became acquainted, and we hit it right off. He was a sports fan as I was. So before long, we were hanging out together, watching ball games on TV, going to ball games together, and going fishing a lot. During that time, I also started developing another relationship. It was a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I got saved. And shortly after I was saved, I tried to, as best as I could, present the gospel to my friend Ed. I knew he was lost and needed Jesus, so I started talking to him about the Lord, and every time I did, he just kind of put me off. He wasn't disrespectful, didn't get angry or anything like that. He just wasn't interested, didn't want to talk about the Lord. We continued with our relationship and enjoying one another, until one morning I got a call, and just before I left to go to work, and it was his wife, and she told me that Ed had had a diabetic seizure and that he was in the hospital. I told her, well, I'll be there as soon as I get off work. I'll go visit him, see how he's doing and everything. And it just didn't strike me that it would be that serious, because even though Ed was about 10 or 12 years older than me, he was a big, strong, healthy guy, and I just figured, well, he'll be all right, he'll get over this, and everything will be fine. Well, that evening, I went to the hospital, and I walked in the room and saw Ed, and I knew everything wasn't great. He wasn't automatically going to be better soon. It was like he had aged 20 years since the last time I had seen him. And that hospitalization, plus the time that he spent in rehab, stretched out to be about 6 months before he finally was able to go home. During that 6 months, I started developing another relationship. This was with a little gal by the name of Wanda, and we got engaged, and I wanted Ed to be my best man. And so when he got out of the hospital, I asked him if he felt like he was up to doing that, and he said he would. He couldn't stand for long without a walker. He needed that for support. But I told him, I said, look, during the ceremony, if you need to, we'll clear a little space on the front pew and you can just sit down. You don't need to stand there all the time. Well, Ed was the kind of friend that if he said, I'm going to stand up with you, he was going to stand up with you. So he stood the whole time. Fortunately, we did have an opportunity, Wanda and I, to spend some time with Ed and his wife Barbara, and we just enjoyed each other's company. And a few months later, I got another call from Barbara. Ed was back in the hospital again. And this time, you didn't have to be a physician to know that it wasn't good. It was a steady downhill stretch for Ed, and in a short time we all kind of knew that he wasn't going to be with us very long. At that time I was just really upset about his spiritual condition, and I was praying, begging, pleading with the Lord to soften his heart, give me, somebody else, an opportunity to share the gospel with Ed before it's too late. So every time I'd go to visit him, which was about 4 or 5 times a week in the hospital, on my way there, I'd be praying and preparing myself to share the gospel with him. But then when I'd get there, it seemed like there was always distractions, doctors, nurses around and stuff, or he was so medicated that he was out in la la land. So just never had that opportunity. And so I knew it was coming to the end. And again, at work one day, I received another call from Barbara. And she said that the doctor had been in and talked to Ed that afternoon and told him that there wasn't anything else they could do for him. The best they could do was try to make him as comfortable as possible. But he didn't have long, just a few days before he would pass. She's told me that Ed, he couldn't speak because he was on a ventilator, but he communicated to the staff around there that he did not want to be on any medication until after he could talk to me, because he was concerned about eternity. As soon as I got off work, I headed to the hospital, and Ed was there, and he was wide awake, in some pain, you could tell, very weak, but he had this look of anticipation in his face. And so I started sharing the gospel with him. As I recall, I talked to him a little bit about John chapter 3, the conversation that Nicodemus had with Jesus, or actually Jesus had more of the conversation with Nicodemus. And then I talked to him took him to Romans 10, and especially the verse that whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. And I explained to him what saving faith really means. It's not just a head knowledge, but it's a heart commitment. And then I asked him, I looked in his eyes and I said, "Are you ready to make that commitment, Ed?" And he shook his head yes, and I grabbed his hand and held his hand and prayed with him. When we got done, he had tears in his eyes and I had tears in my eyes. And I remember leaning over, kissing him on the forehead, told him that I loved him and that I'd see him in heaven. And then I left. And in spite of my sorrow, intense sorrow at losing my best friend, there was a joy that just overwhelmed me, knowing that he wasn't going to go off into eternity without Jesus. Now when I think about the day that I pass from this life and I go to heaven, there's a lot of people that I'm looking forward to seeing. Jesus Christ, of course, number one, but I'm really looking forward to that reunion with Ed, when I can walk up to him, give him a hug, tell him I love him, look him in the eye and say, "Okay, buddy, let's go fishing."